Hello. I was just in my kitchen getting a snack and I couldn't decide, do I want chocolate? Do I want a cookie? Something really healthy. And so anyway, I settled on, actually I did have a piece of chocolate, and then I settled on some of these, which are Albert Heijn brand ribbed chips, potato chips, sour cream and onion flavor, 35% less fat. So not the healthiest, but not the worst. And I had a few of those, and as you might imagine, knowing me, as I was eating my chips, I was thinking, well, what's the deal with potato chips? Where do they come from? And who started this anyway? And what can I learn about potato chips? So here are some things I learned today about potato chips. The first thing I learned is that Americans eat between 4 and 6 pounds on average of potato chips every year. So that's between 1.8 and 2.7 kilos of potato chips every year. There were two different sources. One said the lower number, one said the higher number, but at first it might sound like a lot, but actually I thought, is that it? It seems like maybe it would be more. Some eat more, some eat less, but I think Americans eat a lot of potato chips. And I know some of you want to call them crisps, but I can't do that, as you know. A story I learned about the origins of potato chips is that they may have actually begun as an intended health food. There was a British physician named William Kitchener, who in 1822 wrote a cookbook called The Cook's Oracle. And in this cookbook, he had a recipe for potatoes fried in slices or shavings. And they were fried in lard and then sprinkled with salt, so maybe in those days that was considered very healthy. I know there were health food movements in the Victorian era and the earlier part of the actually throughout the 19th century. So this was one of them, and he was a Victorian era health food proponent. Another story is how potato chips were popularized. So apparently there was a chef named George Crumb, and he was from Saratoga Springs, New York. He had a restaurant, and he served Saratoga chips, and he would put them on the table, on every table, in a basket, and they were so popular, and everybody wanted to go to his restaurant to have his chips. So he started to get people excited about potato chips, and they were talking about them and spreading the word. But really sadly, I learned that he could not patent these potato chips because his dad was black and his mom was Native American, and minorities in those days could not hold patents. So that's pretty pathetic, and he was not able to profit off of his potato chips except at his own restaurant. Now, I grew up in Chicago, and some of you live in Chicago too, and if you do, I know you know Jay's potato chips. That was like, when I was a kid, that was the brand we always got. And it's a white bag with the blue writing. Do you remember the slogan? Jay's potato chips, can't stop eating them. And, Lay's potato chips are a more popular brand. Lay's actually came first before Jay's. And the slogan for Lay's is, bet you can't eat just one. So Jay's kind of ripped off some things from Lay's. The name is similar and the slogan is similar. But there's an interesting backstory that I learned about Jay's potato chips. I never knew this until today. There was a man named Leonard Japp, J-A-P-P, and in 1940 in Chicago, he created a potato chip company, or he started distributing potato chips called Japp's Potato Chips, and he named them after his wife. I think it was Ms. Japp's potato chips. They were really popular, but on December 7th, 1941, I know my history better than that, December 7th, 1941, you know what happened? The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and all of a sudden, Mr. Leonard Japp's last name was not something people wanted to see on their bags of chips or anything else they bought at the grocery store or anywhere else. And he had a branding issue, big time. So he had to rebrand, and he did. He called his new brand Jay's, but it was the same potato chips. So that's why Jay's potato chips are Jay's potato chips. That's it. There was no J. Anyway, I could tell you a lot more. I'll share some resources in the comments, and meanwhile, if you have a bag of chips, enjoy a snack. I'm going to have one more, and I'll see you next time.